Welcome back to the finals of the HeroesHype Amateur Series Week 14 between the PLEYZ and Wild Growth. I am Gillyweed, one of your casters, and joining me is Anna. What's up, Anna?
Hey Gilly, super stoked to get into this finals. This has been a fun week. We've had some great matches, and I'm sure these ones are going to be good as well.
Yes, I have no doubt that it's going to be awesome, and I'm super excited to see both of these teams face off here in the finals. I mentioned the young blood versus the oldsters and got teased for it dearly in the game. So you're welcome for that, teams. I hope you enjoyed that.
Well, you know, we can't help it that we've got the babies and the geezers facing off here. And we're going to see who's going to come out victorious. Wild Growth is a known name around here. And that's what's interesting is this is the amateur series. And what you want to do as an amateur team is make a name for yourself in the amateur series so that when people go sniffing around looking for players or for teams to pick up, your name comes up. So the PLEYZ is saying, hey, Wild Growth, we want a spot here at the top with you. This is going to be kind of a battle of the titans to see who will dominate this week.
Yes, for sure. And while the PLEYZ are relatively new in team name, they do have a lot of members that we've seen on other teams in the past here. We've got Lex Uther, Yell Cow, Evan Drinde, Zeus, and Pirate Realm. We've seen them all in some form. And so we are ready to get into the draft. We're going to have Cursed Hollow as our first map, a very classic map, just to see which team is going to be the Titan for this, at least the first game. Let's hop into the draft.
I'm really excited. We are going to be on Curse Hollow, like you said. We already do have one ban. The PLEYZ get pick first ban. They are going to say we do not want to play against the Lost Vikings. We've talked about this ad nauseum. The Lost Vikings can soak experience like no other because they can literally be in 3 places at once if they would like. So especially on Cursed Hollow, when you have to send your whole team to go fight over a tribute, you can leave little Vikings everywhere to make sure you're still gaining experience as well. So the PLEYZ do not want to deal with that. They don't want to risk it. They are going to ban it out. Wild Growth, on the other hand, banned Sylvanas.
They did ban Sylvanas. So two of the teams that are two of the heroes rather that are very good at getting experience. One from passively soaking in lane, but sometimes sieging as well, just being able to continually push with the camps. But then, of course, the siege goddess herself, Sylvanas. And you hit it right on the head, Anna. Any of these maps where you have to leave lane because you have to go after those map objectives that are really, really strong. And especially on big maps like Cursed Hollow 2, those Vikings are so good. So definitely both of these bans, totally understandable here. And before we talk about this pick here, I just want to say, you have a great vocabulary, Anna. Ad nauseum.
Oh, wow.
You're crazy.
Well, thank you, Gilly. I appreciate that. You are a glorious cherry hanging from the highest branch on a tree drenched in sunshine.
I also have to amend my compliment to say that you also give the best compliments. And thank you for that. And with that, Kael'thas will be the first pick from the PLEYZ. I'm loving the amount of play we're seeing him. It's just going to show that he is very strong in this meta, straight out the bat.
It also proves that the trend is here to stay of prioritizing damage dealers. Of course, we see some variation on that, but almost invariably, we're seeing Vala, Jaina, Sylvanas first picks, and Kael'thas is in those ranks as well. I think they said, you know, all you hooded girls are getting the attention. Let's put this guy, a caped guy, in there to help you along. So I think it has to do with fabric. The more fabric you have, the more likely you are to be first picked.
Fabric seems like it should directly say, you know, fabric to winning ratio. So now Wild Growth has grabbed Jaina and Illidan, and that is a very strong 2 picks right off the bat. To have both of those able to deal damage. We talked about siege potential from Jaina, but of course she also just deals a ton of burst damage to heroes as well. Her abilities add chill, which is her hero trait, and chilled heroes are slowed. They also take more damage from her other abilities, so they really compound on top of each other. And add that to Illidan, his ability to chase people down, deal a ton of damage, and Wild Growth is looking very strong in terms of damage dealers.
Yeah, Illidan, of course, another one of those prioritized damage-dealing first-pick type heroes. Also fits Fabric. He has a blindfold on, although the rest of him is lacking in Fabric. So I don't know if that breaks my theory or not. But, of course, like you said, a really important damage-dealing first pick. The PLEYZ are going to pick no more damage dealers at the moment. They're instead going to say, all right, we're going to grab our tank as well as our support, and they're going to go with Muradin Uther, which is going to be really, really fun in terms of stunning so that Kael'thas can rain damage down.
Yeah, they both have really good stun potentials, but another thing to note is a lot of times people have been picking Uther to go with Illidan because he has that divine shield that makes somebody invulnerable for 3 seconds, and that means that Illidan, when put on Illidan, he can stay in the fight and deal even more damage, but they're not going to have the ability for that. And plus, we've seen lots of teams like picking Muradin versus Illidan because of his Thunderclap talents, being able to slow down his attacks, stun him so often that he's not able to get away, and being able to stun somebody like that with Kael'thas right behind to throw all his damage on it, that can be really scary for them too. But now we have 2 more picks for Wild Growth.
Yeah, Wild Growth is going to go with Anub'arak. So people really loving that Anub'arak, the bug man himself tonight. And we are going to see more of that for Wild Growth. Also picking up Vala. So now at this point we have Jaina, Illidan, and Vala for Wild Growth with a tank that is not super tanky. So they're really, really going to need some support help here as their next pick. I'm assuming they might go with someone like Rhaegar. Potentially, maybe a Malfurion could be really great with Tranquility as well, so that those hooded ladies can hide underneath it while they deal damage. The PLEYZ, on the other hand, are going to go with a second support in Tyrande.
Yeah, I like your ideas for supports for Wild Growth. And I think with this Tyrande pick, the PLEYZ are really banking on the idea of sustaining through fights. If they can just keep their heroes alive long enough to take out the squishiness of anybody so far on Wild Growth, then they've got a great situation that's 5v4. They can compound on that and just continue to win the team fight from there. Plus, they've continued to have such good stuns. Look at this now, Muradin, Uther, and Tyrande, so much stun potential. And they go ahead and grab Zagara off of that as well. So I think what we're looking at in terms of these team comps is the PLEYZ, like I said, trying to sustain through the damage from Wild Growth, whereas Wild Growth are hoping that with the amount of damage that they're able to put out, they just instantly take someone out, and then all of a sudden they have the 5v4 situation.
The PLEYZ certainly have vision on lockdown. They've got Zagara with her creep tumors and spreading creep all over the map. They've also got Tyrande with the owls, and we know that those owls have definitely been on point in a lot of the games we've watched tonight, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that again. But I have to agree with you that the amount of damage output coming from Wild Growth's team composition is scary. And now that you've got a Rhaegar there as well, you're going to be able to do a lot of healing. You're also going to be able to slow, and Rhaegar is also going to have all sorts of escapability. So he's certainly someone that can help out in a team fight, not just somebody who can kind of, be passive and hide a lot.
Yeah, that is definitely for sure. I also want to note that there is a lot of possibilities for blood on Wild Growth too, and that is always something that we see teams stacking for, because having a bunch of blood for bloods means that you can throw them all on one target and burn them down very fast, and then from there, anytime you can create this favorable situation where you have more heroes at a fight than they do, that is going to go for your, generally, almost always go for your favor.
Absolutely. And this is the second match of our finals, if I am not mistaken.
This is the first game?
This is the first game of our finals, if I am not mistaken. So I am really, really excited to see these two face off. We've seen some great games from both of them. Wild Growth, in my mind, is, if we had betting odds, maybe the favorite. What do you think, Gilly?
Wild Growth is definitely, in the history of HeroesHype, been the team to beat. But the past few times, they haven't quite been, we had a while where they were winning every single finals, and then the past few times they haven't made it to the finals, like last week, or not quite been as successful. So I do think that in HeroesHype tradition, they are the team to beat, but I think that the PLEYZ could definitely be the team to do so.
Well, let's take a moment to introduce who's playing what. We have, of course, Wild Growth in blue.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. Forest is going to be playing Jaina. Jordo will be playing Illidan. Collusion will be on Anubarak. Zox will play Vala. And Jimea will be on Rhaegar.
And in the red, doing a similar style of Ring Around the Fountain, is the PLEYZ with Lex Uther on Uther. Yes, I love when that happens. Evan Drinde playing Kael'thas. Pirate Rum on Tyrande. Yelkow playing Muradin. And on Zagara is Zeus.
We see Wild Growth hanging out down here on the bottom, looking to get a pick on Zagara this early in the game. She just walked right into a living hell, is what she did.
A little bit
just
of an
there.
observing fail there. I apologize. But yes, you were right. Wild Growth took her out, even and grabbed Vision here. So being very aggressive, and they definitely have the potential for gank squads with that Jaina and stuns from Uther, as well as the totem even from Jimmy can come into play there, just being just enough to be able to take somebody out.
That was really smart. You don't expect a team to be waiting right there to gank you after you grab that vision camp down there in the bottom. And Zeus, unfortunately, not hiding behind the towers there at the beginning of the game, but now will be under their protective fire. Will be able to zone the rest of Wild Growth out from that bottom lane. While there's a lot happening up here in between the mid and top lanes.
Yeah, we're seeing some rotations from the PLEYZ. Initially, we had 3 heroes on top for the PLEYZ and 3 heroes on bot for Wild Growth. So they were just really trying to have a good push on the side where their golem was going to be pushing later on. But the rotations are coming in from the PLEYZ. They're looking to maybe get a gank here. They want to stop this push from Wild Growth, which can be very strong because they do have the Jaina down here.
Absolutely. We also have, so Forest on Jaina was hiding, looking to get yet another pick on Zagara. But Zagara can move very quickly on this creep and is managing to stay just out of reach and zoning people away from those towers. They have not had much damage done on them, considering that 3 members of Wild Growth have been here so consistently in the bottom. We now see Pirate Rum coming and Yelkow coming as well to take out Jaina. Will she die? Yes, she will. Pirate Rum, Zeus, and Yelkow are now 3 versus 2 on Wild Growth, who had been dominating this bottom lane. They're going to be able to escape for now, but that's certainly what they wanted, and it will catapult them to 4 first, but only barely, as things are still very even in this game.
Sorry for that gasp there, but this gank squad is so consistent, and this time, Yelkow and Pirate Rum got some great stuns on top of Collusion. Before, when they came up, he was able to burrow charge away, but this time they caught him just in time with the stun so that he couldn't quite do so, and they almost got a kill on him. He is rather low now for this tribute as it's spawning, so this is going to be an issue for them, as we've already talked about it. Anubarak as a tank is pretty squishy, especially early on, but Evan taking a whole bunch of damage while trying to get this tribute. Now, Wild Growth is staying in lanes, which means they realized it would be very difficult for them to try to come up and get this. They were a little bit out of position. They were low as well, so they decided it was not worth the risk of losing their lives, and so instead they just stayed in lane and are continuing to get experience, and even some Merc camps as well.
Yeah, we see the confidence coming out from Evan Drinde, knowing that he's got a lot of support on his team coming up to help him with that tribute. That kind of looked like a dangerous situation for a squishy character like Kael'thas, with multiple players from Wild Growth encroaching on his space, but knowing that he's got healing as well as tanking as well as all sorts of fun coming his way to help made him able to just stand there boldly and grab that tribute. So maybe we will continue to see confidence from that side of the map.
Okay, well, there's been about a million things that I've wanted to mention now, but can't, because every time I start to, there's going to be ganks. And you guys do not gank Zeus so that I can say something for a split second. Thank you. Okay, for one, Evan Drinde, before, we've always seen play Tyrande, and we're seeing him play Kael'thas now, so we're seeing him switch roles a little bit. Also, once again, we're seeing Jaina here go with Winter's Reap, increasing the range of crossbow. And I have to think that maybe they're liking that, especially on this map, because she can go in and try to stop a tribute channel a little bit easier without giving away your position as much. Also, what was that? Oh, 2 protective shields on the side of the play, so really going for sustainability, which is good here because remember they already were looking to sustain as much as possible. Here we go with the team engagement, but Zeus is way out of position and will be taken out. And now without this, and on top of the fact that Wild Growth is in a much better position to take this tribute because of how this rock outcropping is, we're going to see the PLEYZ just back off and go back to lane.
Yeah, the PLEYZ do have... Oh, go ahead. What's happening,
sorry,
Billy?
I just had to take a breath.
Oh, the PLEYZ and Wild Growth both do have 1 tribute now. Of course, it does take 3 to equate to a curse, so neither one too concerned at this moment. They are going to be looking to make sure they keep their experience high, and that is going to be as much of a priority as grabbing tributes right now at this point in the game. We do see creep spread around here in the bottom, but not a whole lot around the rest of the map. So Zagara being used more in terms of defensive, CG, assassin-y type uses at this point, more than just the vision grabber that she may be in other games.
Zagara did also go with the reconstitution and the endless creep talent. So the more standard, making sure that you have creep spreading as much as possible for vision, and that should help them in the later game because we'll see them dropping creep tumors around the places where the tributes spawn, just making sure that they always have the good positioning. Remember, they are the sustain team. They want to always make sure that they're positioning solid so that they can just sustain through fights, while we see Wild Growth just kind of throw themselves into the fight as they have that Nubarak and that Illidan.
Tribute is now spawning in the bottom of the map. We see the PLEYZ are in a great position to take it here, but there's still plenty of time for Wild Growth to come contest. We will see if they will do that or look for experience. It looks like all of the players are huddling around the bottom here, but we do have an engagement going down in the middle lane. Looks like they're content to try to get picks before running in there.
Yeah, it was a little precarious because both teams weren't quite 10, but very close. And so I think they were just worried about the positioning. And oh no, Jaina is getting very, very low and actually has to get the ancestral healing from Jimmy to stay alive, even throwing down the water elemental. So that's 2 heroics that may not be there for the next tribute fight.
Yeah, and I think that the PLEYZ kind of sent that blood in the water. They're confidently pushing against this wall, relying on their sustain and the fact that they don't have to worry about those heroics to make sure that they take down both towers and this wall before potentially retreating.
Yeah, that's a really great, because if they only need 1 more tribute to be able to get cursed. And now with those towers down, if they can get cursed, it's going to be way easier for them to grab that fort, as it's already way exposed. The next tribute is spawning, and it's in a great location for the PLEYZ as the rock outcropping. But because they're a little bit out on the map, they do kind of have to go around the rocks, but are going to be able to do so before the rest of the team, Wild Growth, gets in there. Now we've got the engagement. There is the Phoenix, as is Metamorphosis. Gordo is on the hunt. Devouring Maw catches 1 person in there, but already Ancestral is fused, which means a Nubarak is going to have to go down. He does web wrap Yell Cow, so the stuns weren't there, but they weren't able to capitalize too much off of that, as they've only taken out an Uther, and they're all getting very, very low. They're very squishy. We've talked about that before. Jaina and Illidan have gone down, whereas everybody is still up except for Uther on the side of the PLEYZ, and there even goes Avala, only Jimmy remaining, and I think he's saying, God, that's a lot of damage to try to heal through.
Absolutely, and what we were seeing there is that sustain coming into play. They were able to just be beaten upon for a while and then say, all right, we can still fight, can you? And the answer was no. Wild Growth mostly falling to the PLEYZ in that fight. Also wanted to mention that great placement of Starfall, which bottlenecked the team into a hallway of damage as they had to go through that in order to fight.
Man, Collusion taking a ton of damage from the great Lunar Flare that kept him there while everyone else could throw damage on him. And that's kind of the problem, right? Noob is pretty squishy, and we should talk about the heroics that they did take while this curse is going on. We've got the Water Elemental, Metamorphosis, Web Blast, Reign of Vengeance, and Ancestral Healing for Wild Growth. The PLEYZ, who have just hit 13, picked up the Divine Storm, Starfall, Devouring Maw, Avatar, and Phoenix.
Interesting. So potentially some Maw into, again, circles of raining damage could be seen on behalf of the PLEYZ.
Yeah, Starfall and Phoenix together are really, really good. You can use them as a way to create a giant zone of zoning, or you can use it, put it together, and because the Starfall is slowing, then they're dealing a ton of damage with the Phoenix. And there we go. Kill does go down immediately, but there was the Divine Storm. Nobody really to capitalize on it though, as Nubarak will go down, so at least they got him, but everybody is very low on the side of the PLEYZ, and they're all going to get out. So Uther will drop, so it's going to be a 1 for 2 in favor of Wild Growth.
So the sustainability not being the priority that it needed to be there for the PLEYZ, they are going to have to be a little more conservative. Although they are just a tiny bit ahead in experience, both teams being at level 13, not a huge disparity in terms of what they're capable of level-wise. Now everyone is up, teams are fresh, and they're looking for the next tribute to spawn, trying to be healthy when that does happen, and also trying to take objectives on the map. I think we'll see the PLEYZ go for their siege giants. We will also see Wild Growth do the same.
Yeah, the positioning of that fight I do not think was what PLEYZ were wanting, and because Wild Growth were able to come right in, first of all, because the PLEYZ were grouped, that gave a great metamorphosis to Illidan, but also they took down Kael'thas really fast, and that's what Wild Growth needs to do. They have great sustainability, the PLEYZ do, but if they're able to really focus down on somebody squishy like that, and especially Evan Drinde, who's on that squishy, very high damage dealing Kael'thas, then all of a sudden they don't really have a ton of damage potential there.
Yeah, if you take Kael'thas out of that team, they can sustain all they want, but they can't do a lot in return. So I think you're right there that the priority target should be Evan Drinde. So the onus is on Evan to stand in the back lines and make sure that he's out of reach.
2 Shrink Rays for the PLEYZ, continuing to go for the sustained through fights by being able to shrink who I will assume to be Illidan, but honestly it could maybe be Jaina or Vala as well. We're going to do that. We've got the next tribute spawning, and it won't be a curse for either one, but the positioning, it's interesting here. The PLEYZ are set up really well in this bush, but they could come around the back while Growth could. So we'll have to see if they decide to come in through this bottleneck or if they decide to go around safely.
Yeah, really interesting that they decided to come around from on top. A lot of damage going down. The Maw will pop. As soon as they come out, they will be under a... Oh my goodness. Lex Uther becoming very low. Pirate Rum getting so low and will fall. We see Wild Growth dominating by putting down all sorts of damage here. And it doesn't look like the PLEYZ will be able to sustain through this one.
Evan, my friend, I'm sorry. That was a terrible spot to be in. So, such good zoning of Evan. But he was way over here, and everyone else was over here, and if they couldn't take out Evan, then they're going to zone him the heck away so that he cannot throw any damage down. And from there, once again, they took out Zagara first, so who's left? Tyrande, Uther, and Muradin. Not going to be enough damage to take anybody down, and so then they were able to take out Tyrande on top of that, and then go loop back around for the Kael'thas. Now they've grabbed a boss, and the next boss, it still is a minute 30 until it's up, but it looks like we're seeing some pings up at the top. It's possible they might decide to push here because they know that the rest of the team members of the PLEYZ are going to come bot to defend this boss, which allows them to either push in one of the other lanes, maybe even mid here.
Yeah, they do have siege giants pushing in the top lane, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them go up there like you mentioned. But they also can let them do their own thing and distract Kael'thas while they push in the mid lane. They will get that fort and likely this tower as well while Kael'thas is up there dealing with the giants and the rest of the team was in the bottom lane dealing with that boss. They've cleared this entire area. Now Wild Growth is going to back off. They see the owl coming in from Tyrande and they know they've been found out and they must back away. The tribute is spawning bot though, so I would assume we're going to see an engagement here.
I thought that that was a really great decision to go for mid because even if they didn't get top with those giants, it was so low. It's so low now that it's going to be really easy to take out with either of her or just pushing up. But Yalkow getting stunned, or Collusion getting stunned to oblivion between Muradin and Tyrande, and he will go down. So now they're out a tank. They have taken out Kael'thas though, so we can see they really are making Kael'thas a priority, going after him every single time, and that's the kind of focus fire that they need. But now remember, they don't have a tank, and a great stun from Lex Luthor is going to make Gordo very low, but they also got the perfect Ancestral off, and that meant that now only Pirate Rum remains on the PLEYZ, and that's going to be an entire team wipe for Wild Growth at the expense of only losing one Anubarak.
Kael'thas is the key there. As soon as Kael'thas was down, yeah, it's going to take a while, but you're going to be able to take the PLEYZ out because they can't kill any of you. And the more that more members of the PLEYZ get killed, the more the odds are not in their favor. So we will see mid go down, like you mentioned. It was low. Top is also low. We see some Winions, if you will, pushing there as well. And only Evan Drinde is here to say, hey guys, stop! Stop it!
Stop!
Stop.
Yeah, that is the worst situation you can be in, is losing a tribute fight and losing all of your team members so that nobody can defend a curse. is a sucky feeling, and they lost a keep for it. And now it's going to be a struggle because they will have catapults pushing against them in mid for the rest of the game. There's still 2 forts up on the side of Wild Growth. This is crazy.
Now we see Bruisers will go down for the PLEYZ. I think this is really well thought out from them. They need to take some push potential in their lanes. They know their opponents are going to do the same thing, but they've got to make sure to get that under control before they venture out on the map again, before potentially they see another tribute happen. So really falling back and taking those. We will see if Wild Growth will try to take advantage of them while they're doing that, though, and it looks like they're heading toward that boss. So the PLEYZ will not be able to take this boss safely.
Yeah, they're almost level 20, and that means that they can be this way because one kill most likely would give them their level 20. But at the same time, it's a great time for the PLEYZ to maybe make something happen in terms of a team fight. So Wild Growth for now is going to back off. I did want to mention, by the way, look at their talents. 3 Blood for Bloods and Northern Exposure, which makes enemies vulnerable. Rhaegar could have grabbed that Blood for Blood too, but instead going for the Earth Grasp Totem, and I don't blame him. If they can catch somebody, slow them down, they've got enough damage that I think they can sacrifice 1 Blood for Blood to take somebody out.
I guess they don't need 4 Blood for Bloods, I guess. That's fine. Well, and the question is, looking at these talents, do we see enough damage for there to be hope for the PLEYZ at this point in the game?
Oh, they've got to get 20 at this point. They're not going to want to engage into this. They may try. If their hand is forced, they definitely will. But look at all of the lanes and how they're pushed. I think what they want to hope for now is catching somebody out of position. It's not necessarily damage, right? Like, Evan does a ton. It's just that they have to get it correct. Oh, man. Jaina and Vala melted, and that's exactly what they needed. That was a perfect Starfall and Phoenix. And that's what I was saying. Like, it's not necessarily damage. That they just have to keep sustaining the way that their team is built to do. And that is what they needed right there. They're actually going to continue chasing. This might be an excellent time for them to pick up a boss. Their opponent's boss is actually up in 14 seconds, so they want to be aggressive here. They want to go after this boss, and then they could circle around and get theirs. But Wild Growth is maybe looking to just go after that boss here instead.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that the PLEYZ is built to sustain and to fight in situations like tribute fights where there's lots of control as to where their opponents can run, because now they've got those giant area of effect damage heroics that are doing great damage and melting their opponents down, but they've got to have the right place to do it, so it forces them to walk through it.
Exactly. The positioning for those is key, and a lot of times they've been caught out in places where they can't really throw that, but that was a great spot for them, and that was an overcommit by Wild Growth too, which is something that they're probably very thankful for. Now, everybody is up on Wild Growth. Remember, the PLEYZ still aren't 20, but they do pick up the tribute just barely. The stun impale from Anubarak, not quite enough. And now I'm wondering what Wild Growth are going to do. They're going to hang out around this boss, but every second they wait here is allowing this boss to push up into their own bottom lane.
Wow, that Collusion's impale not quite hitting was such a huge, tiny, huge moment in the game, because yeah, tiny, huge. Now we're going to see Wild Growth look to push on the top, and they're getting zoned pretty well at this point.
3 heroics already down, and this fight has not really begun. And now there is a great stun on Collusion, not follow-up stun, not going to hit though, as he will be able to burrow away. Now he's going to burrow back in. He's in the middle of this fight, and look at the positioning of the Starfall and the Phoenix right on top. Anubarak's down, but so is Uther. But there is Illidan. It's Rhaegar, Jaina, and Vala left. There was a great devouring maw. Rhaegar will go down. Forrest and Zox have got to get out of there. Zox, no! That positioning, you're being given away by the wizard. Oh, Evan picked up on it, picked up the Vala kill. That sucks.
Oh my goodness. That's exactly like I was saying. That is exactly where Wild Growth does not want to fight the PLEYZ. They do not want to be in a bottleneck, because they can just have that Starfall Phoenix combination dropped on their heads and not be able to go anywhere or do anything other than die.
And look at this choice. Wild Growth made a choice not to go and defend the boss. And what happened? It took out the keep and opened up a path to core. It even took down the shields of the core. And with that, the PLEYZ were able to push in and take the win. Whoa.
Wow. What a game.
That wizard! That wizard MVP!
Oh my goodness.
He gave away the positioning of Vala! I can't believe that. Oh my gosh.
Man, that was a great game. And I love when we see team compositions that are built with subtlety, but for such different purposes like that. Like you said, Wild Growth being the team that could burst you down, could be super aggressive. And they did that very, very well. But the PLEYZ getting that engagement in that tiny bottleneck when they knew they had the AoE heroics and could sustain through a fight if they needed to. Oh man. Last minute top-notch play.
Man, so the decision of Wild Growth to go up and not defend the boss, they needed to win a fight and get a keep to at least mitigate the keep that the Giant was going to get, if not push in and win from that point if they could get the team fight. But unfortunately, they dropped Water Elemental and I think was it Ancestral? One of the other heroic abilities early on. They were down 3 heroics and then from there decided to go back in and engage. A noob burrowed out, it looked like they were running in, and then burrowed back in. And from there, that was a ton of sustain. They dealt with all of the damage. They got a great maw that enabled them to take out the rest of the heroes. And then that awful wizard MVP.
Oh man, you know, it's interesting too, those kind of heroics can be so confusing in a team fight. You can create so much havoc that it's almost hard to play through. So I'm really enjoying the like layers of pain strategy that we had there from the PLEYZ.
Yeah, that's a great sentence. Somebody quote Anna on that. Well, thank you for that, and what a great game. I can't wait for the next game, so let's go ahead and take a quick break while these guys get their next map, take a breather, and then when we come back, game 2 in the finals.